Hey y'all, welcome back to my somewhat random series, Discog Random Reviews, where I take a look at an album, just a random album from my collection in Discogs. And if you saw my last video, you know that this one is John Cougar Mellencamp, Scarecrow. If you want to see more of these Discogs Random Reviews where I just talk about the random album, be sure to do me a favor, give me a like and a subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And let me know what you think of this album. And stay tuned to the end and we'll have a sneak peek at what's coming next. But now, let's talk about John Cougar Mellencamp's Scarecrow. Now, Scarecrow was released in 1985, which means it's 40 years old already. Just let that sink in for a little bit. It's 40 years old. It had 5 singles released from it. Lonely Old Night, Small Town, Rain on the Scarecrow, ROCK in the USA, and a 5th one called Rumble Seat, right? But we'll get into that in a little bit. It's a good album. When I first decided to get into vinyl, this was one of the first albums I got. I found it on eBay for a really good price. I think it was like $5 or something. It was an original pressing, still in the shrink wrap, still with the hype sticker on it. Just go ahead and show it to you. The inner sleeve is a little wrinkly. I don't know if that's water damaged or what that is, but it's fine. There's like no mold on it or anything. And the record itself, you know, is in good shape. It looks good. So for $5, I can't say anything bad. And I like this album. This is a good album. Growing up, I was one of my first favorite songs that I remember was Jack and Diane. So that's why I've got American Fool right here. But Jack and Diane was one of my first favorite songs. And this one, you know, it's not quite that. It's him growing up a little bit and trying to be a little more serious. And it's, according to Wikipedia, which I've never heard this specific term before. Maybe this is a term that they use to identify him. But this album is Heartland rock. Which, is that really a thing? I don't know. I mean, it perfectly describes it because, you know, it's a rock album about a lot of heartland type issues. You know, like Rain on the Scarecrow, about farms and all that kind of stuff. So I can see that. I can see it. And it's good. It's good stuff. But you've got the 5 singles, right? And you probably remember 4 of the 5 singles. ROCK in the USA was a number 2, and Lonely Old Night and Small Town were both number 6. And this album sold 5 million copies, by the way, so not too shabby. It was a big album. Don't remember what number it reached on the chart. I'll throw that number up on the screen here. But it was a big album, right? So let's talk about, you know, some of the deeper cuts on this album, because I've got some issues with some of them. Now, like I was saying, this is a more political album. There's a song called Face the Nation, right? And that song is probably the definition of album track, right? It's fine. I don't really have anything negative to say about it or anything really positive to say about it. It's just fine. And I can appreciate that, you know, they can't all be Small Town or Lonely Old Night or ROCK in the USA. They can't all be that, you know, which is fine. Now, Justice and Independence 85. Okay, it's a little too on the nose. I understand what he's saying. I can appreciate what he's saying. I agree with what he's saying. But the way he's saying it is just a little, I don't know, it's just a little lame to me. And then it kind of goes on a little bit too long as well. So that one I can do without. Now, a standout of the deeper tracks is a song called Between a Laugh and a Tear, right? It's a song about, you know, losing your innocence and having to grow up and basically deal with all of life's bullshit in this fucked up world. I mean, it's easily relatable. It's something we can all relate to, especially these days. But it's a good one, and the backing vocals are done by Rickie Lee Jones, and she does a great job. It reminds me, and I'm not saying it sounds the same, but it reminds me of when Stevie Nicks would do backups on like a Tom Petty song, right? And just that quality that it adds to it is what this reminds me of. And that's, if you already know the singles off this album, check out Between a Laugh and a Tear and let me know what you think, because I think that's a pretty great song. And then there's a song called You've Got to Stand for Something. I know, once again, I know what he's saying. He's trying, right? He's trying. But that's a phrase that is way too overused. And I want to know where it, I looked up where that phrase originated, and apparently it was attributed to Anthony Hamilton, though we don't know if he actually said it. But it's used a lot in music, and I always think it's kind of lame. But then there's a line in the song, and I don't know if I love it or I absolutely hate it, so it's definitely worth mentioning. He says, I know a lot of things, but I don't know a lot of other things. And it's like, that's part of the chorus. So he says it a bit. It's like, well, yeah, we all know a lot of things, but we don't know a lot of other things. It's weird and out of place. So I think it's, like I said, I don't know if I love it or I hate it, but it's definitely, I find it amusing. All right, but now the hits, right? Lonely Old Nights, Small Town, Rain on the Scarecrow, ROCK in the USA, and Rumble Seat. It's very obvious to me why we don't remember Rumble Seat these days. It is not in the same league as those other four. Now, ROCK in the USA, love it or hate it, it's catchy, it's memorable, it's just a good, fun song, right? You don't have to love it, but it's a good, fun song. And here's the thing. ROCK in the USA is subtitled A Salute to 60s Rock, right? This album was released in 1985, and they're saluting 60s rock. We are further away from this album's release than he was when this album was released to the 60s, right? So if you say 1960, let's just go to the earliest. 1960 to 85 is 25 years. 40 years ago. So we're all getting old. I mean, that's a good thing. The alternative of getting old, it kind of sucks, so let's not do that. But Rumble Seat, I don't care about that song at all. I can see why it wasn't really successful. And I think stuff like Memories, or Minutes to Memories, which I didn't even mention, is another good song. It's a song about a guy, riding on a Greyhound bus talking to an old man. And, the whole cliched old man gives young man life advice. But it's true when, your days turn into minutes because time starts going faster as you get older. And then those minutes turn into memories because they're gone. So it's a good thing, and I can relate to it a lot more now that I am old. Now that I'm old. There, I admitted it. Are you happy? Are you happy, John Cougar Mellencamp, making me admit that? Son of a bitch. But Lonely Old Night and Small Town, I still love those songs. Those are just classic, those are just classic MTV staples of the day. And I still love them to this day. They bring back good memories. And I can relate to Small Town because I'm from a small town, And just Lonely Old Night is just a great, great song. I love it. Okay, now one thing about the production, it's produced by Don Gaiman and Little Bastard, who is John Mellencamp, apparently, Little Bastard. But it sounds great. It's got that, if you know Lonely Old Night or Small Town, you know the sound that this whole album has, and it fits it. It's got that very, very cracking snare sound, so I hope you enjoy that because it's all over the place. So if you don't like that sound, then you might not like the production on this. Personally, I don't mind it. I think it's fine. And it's Kenny Aronoff on drums, who, obviously has played on just a ton of stuff in the past. He's, one of the most famous session musicians around. So, yeah. And Ry Cooder's on here, too. Somewhere. Or no, he was on an album that was, or a song that was left off the album, but it was put on the cassette and CD, so I can't talk about that. But he is on that as well. But that's not here, so that's neither here nor there. But yeah, John Cougar Mellencamp, Scarecrow. I like the album. I don't think it's his best, but I think it's perfectly good. The singles are fantastic, but John Cougar Mellencamp may be one of those artists that all you really need are the hits collections. If you just like, if you just like the hits and don't really care to dig deeper. But there are some good stuff on this album that you would be missing. Like I said, Minutes to Memories and Between a Laugh and a Tear, which I keep forgetting how that's actually the title of that for some reason. But Between a Laugh and a Tear, those two are great and worth it for me. So I appreciate it. So I give Scarecrow, if I was rating it just on the singles alone, it would probably be a 4.5 out of 5, because I think those singles are they're just super solid. But we got to rate it as a whole album, so I'm just going to give it a 3 rumble seats out of 5. It's a good album. It's a solid album, but it's, not a classic. But now let's head over to the computer and see what's next. Okay, so here we are back at the collection here on Discogs, and it's time to see what we've got next. So we go over to the random item right here, and this is what's next. We're going to talk about Aerosmith's 1993 album, Get a Grip, and I've got some stuff to say about that one. So next time on Discog Random Reviews, we've got Get a Grip. So thank you for tuning in. Do me a favor. If you don't already, follow me over on the Instagrams and on TikTok. Links are in the description. It's also on the screen here. And do me a solid and do a like and subscribe. You know how YouTube works. That stuff really helps me out. And then also, let me know of an album you'd like me to listen to, and maybe I will. But anyway, until next time, thanks for everything. I'll see you then. Laters.